So Snapchat crashed recently, and we are going to go over this stock because I think it's actually very interesting once I researched it myself, and I want to share that with you today. Did it deserve the drop? Do I think it's a buy or sell? And just my overall perspective on this company. And so welcome to Mark's Finance and Fitness, where it's everything financial and fitness. And I think both of those areas are excellent to improve in, and so that's what we focus on, and we'll be doing more fitness as we go on. But for right now, we're focusing heavily on the financials just because the market's been a little crazy lately. And recently, Snapchat took a 26% dip. I consider that a crash. And over the last 5 days, it's down about 30%. So what is Snapchat? Snapchat is a social media app that allows you to communicate with your friends and family through video. And it's a fast way to just, share a story and communicate a picture or a small video. And they really focus on, and they've really built their whole business around that, sharing things very quickly in video form, basically. And you can edit and have filters. It's a pretty fun app. I have the app. I use it. It's not my most used app, but I'd say towards the mid-range between that, Facebook, TikTok, I forget what else I use, but I think that it's a pretty good social media app. But let's dive into why it crashed and what I think its future is. So let's look at the stock chart. As you can see here, Snapchat took a very impressive fall. Like I said, over the last 5 days, it's down virtually 30%. That is huge. That is big. And you'll see the little person there falling off that cliff, because that's basically what it is it's a cliff that this company created with its stock price, and it just sunk. And so with that said, why did this stock crash? Why did this stock crash so bad compared to other stocks, maybe social media stocks as well? Well, if we look into the bad, there was some financial reportings where the revenue wasn't quite what they forecasted, and they also put forth, the company Snapchat also put forth projections that the fourth quarter would also kind of be revenue weak. And so that's definitely not a good sign. But the main thing that caused this stock to crash is, if you remember, Apple in the recent past implemented privacy changes on all its iOS devices. And what this does is, when you log into certain apps, it asks you, do you want to be tracked for advertising purposes, basically? And it found that only 16% of people choose to go ahead and accept being tracked, where everyone else says, no, I don't want to. And what that does is, when you accept that, that allows companies like Facebook, Snapchat, Pinterest, all those, to be able to track what you look at, so it can help advertising dollars go towards the people that they think will most likely, buy based on their usage, their history, what they look at, what they click on, things like that. So it's a huge thing, and it allows these companies to really focus their ads where they need to be. Without that, they don't have that advantage. And so what's happening is, a lot of companies are cutting back their advertising spending dollars because they feel without that, they're not willing to spend that much money on advertisement if they can't really laser focus their ads to the people that they know is going to relate to, basically. So this has cut ad revenue severely, and it more severely than analysts even predicted. So even Facebook dropped, a few other social media companies dropped, Pinterest, but Snapchat took the biggest hit. And so that, because I think Facebook only dropped, 3%, 4%-ish, and things like that, but to drop 26% in one day, that is crazy. And so yes, it's mainly because of these iOS privacy changes. And, with Snapchat, we're going to dive into some more things, but basically, there's some weakness ahead due to the drop in their advertisement revenue. And so if we change things up now, let's look at the good, okay? Because Snapchat, it's not all doom and gloom. In fact, I'm going to put my opinion later, but I don't think they deserved this crash. So with Snapchat, the good, I would say, is that they forecasted revenue of 1.1 billion for the quarter, and they came in at 1.07 billion. So not really that big of a miss. It was very minor. And so I don't think that's that bad of a sign, right? And even more important is they reported 0.17 per share profit, which is more than twice what was forecasted at 0.08 cents. And so that right there is a very good positive. And they reported a good amount of free cash flow of 51.7 million. So some of the financial, they missed a little bit on revenue, and their forecast going forward is going to be a little bit slower, but it wasn't that bad of a hit. Not, in my opinion, to deserve a 26% dive in their stock price. And so I thought, let me dive into a few more things with this company, some things that I think will really help put it in perspective on is this stock one that should be invested in now with this dip? Well, let's look at active user growth. As we know, with all social media, apps and platforms out there, the amount of users you have is extremely important because you make revenue off of every single user, from ads to all those types of items where you're going to get money. So if we look at the average daily users, it's gone up. There's been no dips. And they went up to, for the first time, over 300 million daily active users. It came in at about 306 million globally. So there's no problem there with their active users. They're still gaining pretty healthily. And so let's look at something else. Let's look at their revenue growth, okay? If we look at their revenue growth, this is also growing. For the first time, they've hit over $1 billion in revenue, almost 1.1 globally. And if you look, North America is their biggest, by far biggest, profitable part of the world. That's where they're making their most money. So the revenues are growing overall, which is also a good sign when you invest in a company, correct? So let's dive in a little bit more into their financials, okay? This is where it gets just a little bit tricky for me for investing in this company, but let's take a look. So if we start out, let's look at their net income, okay? The net income over the last 5 quarters, if you look down there at the highlighted portion, they have not made a profit yet, okay? But with that said, 5 quarters ago, they made 200 million in loss, and now they're down to 72 million in loss. So they're improving that number and headed towards, hopefully, an income someday, actually becoming profitable. So I do like that trend. But needless to say, they still haven't made a profit. So let's look at their balance sheet. If we look at their cash versus their debt, you'll see over the last 5 quarters, their cash is increasing. It didn't make as big of an increase from the last quarter, but they're still increasing cash. Whereas their debt, though it's a lot of debt, that's a lot of debt to have. Mind you, this is billions. They did reduce their debt from last quarter. So I do like that. But that's still a lot of debt for a company. And that makes me a little nervous. But they do have a decent amount of cash flow. And their assets, compared to their liabilities, I'd like to see those assets a lot higher, their cash a lot higher, and their debt a lot lower. So that's what I think about their financials is I'd like to see them make a profit, a net income. I'd like their debt to be paid down significantly. That is huge. And keep their cash flows growing. And so let's look at something else. So with Snapchat, you can send videos, but they're also doing other things, okay? One of the things that I'm going to show here is they're going into augmented reality. They've created spectacles, is what they call them. And this is one thing that they are trying to go into. And I think this is the future. As we know, Facebook recently, it wasn't augmented reality, but they were glasses that could record and that you can kind of talk to record, take pictures. So I think all companies are moving in that direction. So I'm glad to see Snapchat is being a part of that, because that is the future. And that is the movement that these companies need to be focusing on. And I think the other companies are also focusing on this, such as Google and Microsoft, I believe. They're all focusing on augmented reality. And so I'm glad Snapchat is doing this. This shows promise to me in this company and growth in the future. Some other things that they're doing is they're getting into gaming, and they're trying to grow that. Gaming is huge, as you know. Microsoft is taking a big gamble on that themselves, and so I think that's a good direction to go. They also created something called Spotlight, which is their way of rivaling with TikTok. TikTok has blown up huge, and so Snapchat created what's called Spotlight, where users can kind of create these short, fun videos similar to TikTok, and they're really hoping to grow that. And so far, it's been doing good. I think it's doubled since they rolled it out, and that's a good sign. And TikTok, they really haven't been hit by the ad revenue too bad, because they just started accepting ads. So unlike Snapchat and others who accepted ad revenue basically since the beginning, they are being hit. So with all that said, with Snapchat, I think this is a huge overcorrection. I don't think they deserve a 26% drop in their stock price. And I think that, if we look at the chart again here real quick, I think that this stock under $60 is definitely a buy. Anything above that, you just have to keep in mind their large debt load. They haven't made a profit yet, and there's still a lot for this company to prove and to grow, because there's a lot of competition out there. And so I think there's an upside from this point going forward with Snapchat, but how much upside, I'm not sure. There's so much competition with TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. There's a lot out there. And so, I look at myself, I have a decent amount of friends that use Snapchat. I enjoy using it, but I don't get on it as often as maybe when I first started. But I do enjoy the app. I think they really do have something there. So what I'm going to say is, if you believe in Snapchat, now is the time to buy. They have upside potential. They're reducing their debt. They're increasing their cash. They have, future goals with spectacles, and, their competition with TikTok with Spotlight and gaming, and just really improving their app overall. So I think there's still a lot of room for growing their users and growing their revenue and becoming, a profitable company in the future. And that's just going to do nothing but increase their stock price, because that's what, once they hit a net income positive, that's going to turn this company, I think their stock will shoot up very nicely, right? Would I invest in this stock? So I gave this much thought, and I think for me, I think Facebook is a better stock option. They're going through a lot of turmoil themselves right now, so I think they have also a good buy-in price. They have very good financials, extremely good financials. They're positioning themselves great for the future. And so if it were me, I'd rather choose Facebook. I think Snapchat is more of a gamble than Facebook because of the things we've mentioned. But I think at this price point, I think it's worth getting into Snapchat if you believe and do your research that you think they are going to continue to grow for probably the next 5 to 10 years. I'm a long-term investor. I think Facebook will still be around in 10 years. Will Snapchat? I can't confidently say that. And that's why I would choose Facebook over Snapchat. But Within the next 5 years, I think they still will be around. And I think if they play their cards right, they'll position themselves to be around 5 more years after that and have continuous growth. But for me, it's just not a stock that right now I can buy myself. But I do think there's potential. So if you do decide to buy in this stock, I'd like to hear why. I'd like to know if you think Facebook's better or worse, if you think Snapchat has that, kind of potential to just really boom. I'd like to hear your bullish cases or your bear cases. I'm more on a neutral right now where they're not at that position yet where I'd buy. I don't see that 10 years down the road. It's just, will they be here? They're reaching towards positive income, but they're still at a net loss, and their debt's just too high for me. It just makes it too uncomfortable for me to get into a stock with that much debt. So that's my opinion on Snapchat. I think they overcorrected, so if you're going to buy in, I think now's a good point to buy in. And I think this is one you just really have to look at every earnings to really see what they're doing, if they're still going in the right direction, and that will solidify probably buying more and more shares. Unless if they slip up, then you really need to rethink this stock. So that's all today for Mark's Finance and Fitness. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you guys next time.